From the News Channel 5 Network, this is MorningLine.
Good morning, everyone. Thanks for joining us on MorningLine. Nick Beres here on a Wednesday, wearing my monochromatic red. A lot of people say it reminds them of Regis Philbin when he hosted Who Wants to Be a Millionaire. I don't know. I take that as a compliment. Anyway, this is not Who Wants to Be a Millionaire. This is MorningLine. It's Wednesday, and the number will be up on the screen in just a moment if you want to join in the conversation, because it's Ask an Attorney this morning. And, you know, we have lawyers on in different capacities on this program. Sometimes they come on to talk about high-profile cases that are going on out there, and we may touch on some of those, but this is more your opportunity this morning to call in and ask a question that maybe you're dealing with, where you think you have a legal issue. Do I need an attorney? Is there an action I can take here? And we can try to answer that for you. Free legal advice, not a bad thing, at 737-7587. You're not getting it from me. You're getting it from the attorney over here, Andy Allman. Good morning, Andy.
Good morning. How are you?
It's good to see you. Andy, our regular guest on Ask a Legal Expert. And well, you know, we start this off the same way every time, just to remind folks that I like to kind of stir their thoughts into thinking, okay, oh yeah, that's something I might call in on. Now again, Andy has a very good general background in the law, can answer a variety of legal questions with some exceptions. But again, remind folks, if you will, I'll let you do it instead of me, what your specialty is.
At our firm, we do mostly employment, labor law, some civil rights work.
Yeah.
We represent employees who've been discriminated against in the workplace. They've suffered a wrongful termination, maybe sexual harassment, a hostile environment. They may have been fired because of their age or a disability, maybe their gender or their race. Some employees come to us who've been hurt on the job and have filed a workers' compensation claim and been fired because they made the claim. And so in general, we field calls from individuals who feel like that they've been treated unfairly or they've been treated illegally by their employer in the workplace, and we kind of step in and handle their unemployment compensation benefits if need be, the EEOC process, and then if it later turns into litigation, we continue on representing them through the court system.
All right, yeah, it's very interesting, and a lot of these cases come up. Some of them will make big headlines, and you know, I did a story just last week on a $20 million lawsuit that has been filed against Vanderbilt, a former graduate assistant making some allegations against one of her supervising professors in a capacity where she was working with him and under him, discrimination, some sexual harassment. And looking at some of the statements, and again, Vanderbilt can't respond to this, and we don't know, is it true, is it not, but it's out there. You know, oftentimes in these types of cases, what are the key things you need to prove or make a case or to win these types of cases?
Well, when you look at just a discrimination claim, most of the time you're comparing your client to other employees in the workplace. And when we compare our client to other employees, we look to find employees that are similarly situated. And let's take a failure to promote, and let's say our client put in for a promotion and
keep getting
maybe
passed over. 3
other employees put in for a promotion, and she believes that she was not given the promotion because of her gender, because she's female. And so we look to see who got the promotion ultimately. Was it a male? And so then now we know that one of the comparators is outside the protected class because that person's a male.
Talk about, and real quickly, I want you to elaborate on it, but I was about to intervene. Just say, can you say what are the names on the protected class? Who is in a protected class?
Well,
is it females?
It breaks it down to one's gender, one's age, race, religion, national origin.
Homosexuality is not a protected class yet, or is it?
It's becoming that. It is that in the public sector now. But there's no protected group, so as we reference that when we look at private employers, the private sector. So, but I think that's coming. I think before long that will be a protected group.
And when you say protected, does that mean they have special protections beyond what, say, 2 Caucasian males would have?
No, because a Caucasian male can bring a reverse discrimination claim, and I've handled several of those in the past. Where a Caucasian male says, look, I was just as qualified, if not more qualified, for a job that maybe a female got or a minority got, and I was denied that because I'm Caucasian male. So the Title VII protections that are out there and the protections under the Tennessee Human Rights Act, they're really out there for all employees, and what they're saying is that you can't take adverse employment actions, so to speak, against an employee because of an employee's gender, their race, national origin, disability, age, workers' compensation claim. It doesn't really pinpoint, so to speak. You have to be a particular race or a particular national origin or a particular gender to suffer the effects of discrimination, and that's why we have reverse discrimination claims as well.
I'm wondering, and I'd meant to ask you this, you don't hear as much about it anymore, but the whole affirmative action, when that was in place, and the idea that folks in our situation, in this society, whether you like it or not, and it still exists out there, we're given certain benefits, I believe, than somewhere, it's less likely that I'm going to be discriminated against than someone who's African American. So I could understand sometimes where affirmative action would come into play and say, okay, well, you know, your entire staff is Caucasian. You know, how about getting some color or something that reflects, you know, the public as opposed to just this? How does that square with what you do? You know, if someone says, well, yes, everything was equal, and in this case we chose to go with the individual that maybe was a different race so that we could have more diversity in our office. How does that square sometimes?
In my practice, I really don't run across an affirmative action plan per se that an employer is violating. Now, what I do look at is the racial or gender or age makeup or composite of the workforce. Maybe look at an employer's hiring practices over the last 5 or 6 years. If you look at the total pool of applicants, how many or what percentage of those applicants actually got hired that were all male, all Caucasian, or all minority, or all female. And then you can kind of use that evidence as some backdrop or context to show that this employer does have that bias and is clearly motivated and moving in a direction of hiring one segment of the population to the exclusion of others based on a protected category. There's a story out this morning that I actually read it on the BBC. That the Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals has told the University of Texas that it can continue using race as one of many factors when it selects college applicants, and that's really a big part of where you see the affirmative action arguments these days is when you look at the public sector, and college applications are one of them, and the court was real careful to say, look, the University of Texas is using race as one of many factors. They're narrowly construing it, and they're trying to develop an enriching, diverse educational environment. And so, you know, they kind of deferred to the university as saying, look, we want to do this because we want to enrich the educational opportunities that are there. So
makes sense. All right, good. Listen, okay, so we've kind of laid it out that he does have a specialty in employment law and that type of thing, and we can take calls along those lines. We also can, you know, expand beyond that. Again, the number 7377587. We're gonna have to take a break here in a moment. We can take those calls, but before we do that, let me just ask you this. You know, for someone who's been in the legal profession for quite some time, how does someone sitting out there, be it a case of employment law or something else, decide whether or not, how would you tell someone whether or not they need to seek the services of a lawyer, or if it's something perhaps that they might be able to somehow handle themselves going before a judge, which of course maybe in some small claims issues comes up to play. But what kind of advice would you give someone if someone's sitting out there wondering, well, I hear Andy here, how do I know if I need a lawyer in this situation? What would you say?
Ask.
Just ask. Okay, now who would you ask though? Go ask a lawyer, and a lawyer's going to say, well, yeah, sure you need me. I mean, what?
Well, you can find an attorney online that specializes or focuses on employment law. You can call the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission. You can call the Tennessee Human Rights Commission. They have intake investigators and intake clerks who field those questions to get the appropriate paperwork started if there's a claim. Okay, and in general, and beyond that, you'll see things. Just going before a judge can be an intimidating, you know, thing for anyone. Yeah, have you been in cases sometimes, or you know, even as you were coming up through the law before you know, while you were in school, see where people go represent themselves? Well, sure. Okay. Sure. I've had clients come to me who've represented themselves in the EEOC, the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission process, or the Department of Labor process, and I've seen some that have done so quite well, and some that have done horribly at it. And, you know, but I mean, they had the courage to do it, to stand up for their rights, and that's impressive. impressive.
Yeah, I've been in general sessions before. I used to do a segment called, Inside the Courts, and where we would go, and there would be times sometimes where an individual would be there representing themselves on we're talking about any kind of issue. My neighbor, it's usually small claim stuff, like, owes me something. And there'll be one individual here who may be just on his own, and oftentimes there'll be the other with a lawyer. Sometimes there'll be one of the other. And as I watch that, the judge tries to be helpful, but can only go so far. But I always, obviously, the person with a lawyer, I think, who knows the process, seems to do better.
Right.
Seems to do. But anyway, it all depends on your situation. Listen, we've got to take a break on that note. When we come back, 737-7587 is the number. We can take your phone calls. Ask an attorney. That's Andy Allman right now. Any legal questions you have. It gets busier later in the show, so jump in. We'll see if we can help you. We'll be back with more right after this.